Yes, hello. My name is Miriam, nurse practitioner. This is MP Exam Prep YouTube channel. I have just finished creating some 300 questions, sample practice question for the FNP board exam. And I've noticed something. These questions are all based on pattern recognition. Pattern recognition. So in my 300 questions, well, actually 304 practice questions, I covered all the topics from endocrine, cardiology, cardiovascular, ear, nose, throat, respiratory, women's health, psych, neurology, all of those. So actually, it's totally 304 questions, but I'll list it 300 questions. So I've noticed that while I was also doing these sample practice questions or creating them, I've noticed that the exams test based on clusters. They don't test on facts, really. And here's the thing I've noticed, like for example, they're giving you a cluster of findings and then asking you, what does this pattern mean? Okay, so they will not ask you, oh, describe CHF for me, or describe pulmonary embolism for me. They will put that in a question, and then at the end of it all, ask you a question. So, for example, respiratory, a patient presents with a backache cough and an X-ray shows a steeple sign. What is the diagnosis? Of course, they will add other things into that. So you don't need to know 50 things about croup, right? You just need to know that, okay, as they put those two words together, it could equals to this. So that's the pattern. That's the cluster. Another one from cardiology, one of my questions, a patient has a harsh systolic crescendo, the crescendo murmur at the right second intercostal space, radiating to the neck with a weak delayed pulse. So what is it? What are they talking about here? So then the key things they're giving you, the cluster they're giving you there is systolic neck radiation, weak pulse, which we equal delay. I'm sorry, weak delayed pulse, which we equals to aortic stenosis. So anytime. So this is what I call pattern recognition, and it's the foundation of how I teach my MP courses. So sometimes people would take several MP review courses, and then they would be like, "Oh, well, I practiced about 1,000 questions, but when I got into the exam, I did not see the any other questions. None of the questions were close to what I have studied. But mind you, the questions come in cluster in the pattern recognition form. So just because you practice the questions in the chronology in your sample practice MP review courses does not mean that you see the same exact wordings or questions on your actual MP board exam. Then my finding number two, and this one catches so many students by off guard, the safety first trap. So sometimes students will see both two answers that will look correct or the right answer, but the question might be asking you a safety first question. So let's say one of my questions, for example, so a patient with a STEMI come to your office. Two answers. One is schedule a stress test. One is call 911 immediately. Students overthink it. The answer is always what? Safety first. So call 911. Of course, the question will have more meat in there than just just what I read. But anyway, then the dermatology question. A patient has a suspicious mole, asymmetric, irregular borders, multiple colors, over 6 mm. You see the A, B, C, D, E criteria. What do? Refer to dermatology for biopsy. So you will not choose, oh, reassure the patient, let the patient come back in 6 months, for a recheck. So when you see safety questions competing with anything else, safety is always the winner, right? Then the non-clinical section, where we also, especially if you are doing the ANCC board exam, this is takes a lot of questions from that section. So there we have a few professional questions there too for you to practice with. So for example, a patient refuses treatment and you recommend what? What do you do? Or you discover a billion error from 3 months ago. Next step, what do you do? Or a colleague is practicing outside of the MP scope of practice. What do you do? So these are not trick questions. They have very clear right answers rooted in patient autonomy, ethical principles, and professional practice, right? But if you guys spend all your time on cardiology and ignore this section, on the non-clinical section, I keep saying that to people, you are leaving points on the table. So the clinical part of the non-clinical part of the exam is just as important, especially if you're taking the ANCC board exam. The other one is pharmacology. But pharmacology is woven into everything anyway. So pharmacology is not really just on a section, but it's found everywhere in the practice exam, just like you find it everywhere in the actual FNP board exam. So cardiology. For example, a question will come in the form of, when do you add a beta blocker versus an ACE inhibitor versus a diuretic? Endocrine. First line for type 2 diabetes is still always what? Metformin, unless there's a contraindication, right? Respiratory system, LABA alone in asthma, no way, that's wrong. Always pair it with ICS, right? So psychiatry, first line for GAD, not benzodiazepine, right? Because of the addiction and all of that. Benzos are for short term. So the boards are constantly testing whether you know the right drug, the right timing, the right contraindication. So pattern recognition applies here too. There's another section where I talk about the passcode method. That's I use. I even have a study guide on that. Is after reviewing all the 300 questions, this is what I want you to take away. The board take away. The FNP board exams or the NP board exams are not trying to trick you. They are not trying to humiliate you. They are testing your ability to reason safely, especially in a stressful situation. Because when you start working, trust me, everything seems to be, fast paced and, reasoning and all of that. So, every single question has a defensible answer and a clear reason why the others are wrong. So, my approach, what I call the passcode, is built into one principle known as pattern recognition over memorization. So when it comes to the FNP board exam, memorization may not help us or may not help you. But when you recognize the pattern, you are reading a question, they use some buzzwords in there, present the question. By the time you read it to the end, you are able to start thinking of your correct answer. So those are that's what is known as pattern. So no need to memorize everything, right? You just need to know the pattern and apply the reasoning and choose the safest, most evidence-based answer. So that's why, my 304 questions are going to do for you. So if you want to practice these 304 questions, all of them are blue weighted based on what the AANP or the ANCC board exams are positioned, or the way they set up their questions. So again, I designed them so that you are able to practice with that and see where that leads you, right? So it's available at the npexamprep.com. I also have a free pattern recognition. I call it the FNP board exam free pattern recognition starter kit. So that's a free resource. So you can also download that at npexamprep.com. So that will help you to know about what I'm talking about. So remember, if this video give you any tip at all, make sure you subscribe, right? Share it with people that are also in need of this kind of information. We try to post videos. No, not that we try. I post videos every week to help you on this NP journey, because it's not an easy one, but you will make it. Just like other people have made it, you will make it too. So drop your comment below, like the video, subscribe. I will see you in the next video, and thank you for watching.